So I'm getting in a good rhythm, uploading our videos, uploading our videos to Canvas. So everything should be uploaded now. This computer was having an issue, right? So normally what I do is I log into a Zoom session on my computer, and then I'll log into that Zoom session on this computer. I record on my computer, and then I take that recording, I upload it to YouTube, right? And then that YouTube, I give you guys a link that's an unlisted link, but it gives you access to view the video. Now, with the recording, everything should be plugged to this, and then the volume is connected to the speakers around the room, so it hears everybody talking and so forth. The past two recordings, it's been on my computer, so there's no video. All you probably will hear is just the audio for the course. Also, kind of take note of that, right? This process and technology. Remember, data is gold, right? And using something like this, like imagine what I'm able to do in the back end with, like, I literally have all my courses laid out by date and by subject matter, and it's like all indexed in file, right? So what's to say that one, I couldn't repurpose that and maybe send out on YouTube, like, business communications course using this textbook. And then maybe I go on to another textbook and do the same format, and I'm recording. But eventually I'm building an expertise and then a knowledge base of myself talking around this subject. I could take that information, chop that up, do small chewable clips and promote that on my Instagram social channels. I could write a speech about business communications using our 3x3 writing process and target it to early stage academics and college students. And then I could go pitch to colleges and universities that one, not only will I speak about business communications, I also have an outline of a course that has a syllabi and assignments included, and I can do this either in person or online. Data is gold. So, like the example I used in here was if you were interested in finance and every week you took notes on finance, and then every month you did an update like, hey, this is what I learned in the month, and then you upload that video to YouTube, you chop those things up, like literally you create your own expertise in your own lane based off of just recording what you've learned and documenting the process along the way. Like your data is gold. And also what I love about it is when you think about it in its true infancy, there's always somebody that needs to learn new information. So there's always some 18, 19, 20-year-old student that is looking to find the information you're speaking about. So no matter what it is you want to use as a subject matter, you could say you want to get into IT and you could say you want to get into AI and you want to learn AI, teach yourself AI, record yourself learning, talk about your learning lessons, and then share it with people. At what point do you become the subject matter expert for AI? Especially if you keep on consistently doing this process. Right? So, kind of think about ways that you can implement and use your technology to your advantage. So professionalism at work. So my first question, what are soft skills? Or sorry, not soft skills, what is professionalism? How do you define professionalism?
In our own words, or just from a book?
In your own words. How would you define professionalism?
I would say your etiquette, your diction.
Etiquette, your diction.
Appearance.
Yeah, to drive to do great work. To drive to do great work. And showing, like you said, business etiquette, showing mannerism on why we at work.
Initiatives, business etiquette, business mannerisms.
Attitude, drive.
Attitude. Anybody else?
How you work with other people.
How you work with other people? But when we think about professionalism, is it really defined? You know, there's, what I find about professionalism is it's unspoken rules, right? Like, you know, it's a question I ask constantly for my traditional students, right? Like, is this a professional environment? And all of my students will say, yeah, it's a professional environment. And then I ask them, well, why don't you come and dress as such? And like, everyone's quiet. Now, I went to a PWI, right, primarily white institution. I've never, like, the syllabus doesn't have a dress code. Right, walking around the campus, there's no dress code. But here in the syllabi, there is a dress code, like no hats, you know, no baggy tee. And you walk up those steps over there, that gives you like what's professionalism and all that stuff. In this environment, we have to define it. We have to kind of give examples of what that dressing professionally is. You know, I think it's funny in corporate America, right? Every dress down Friday I've always been a part of, never lasts too long. There's always some, well, by somebody's perspective, there's a woman that's dressed inappropriately, and because she's wearing tights in her gym clothes and somebody didn't like it, now all of a sudden dress down Fridays. Y'all don't have that in Austin. Because Austin, you pretty much come to work how you feel, right? But you know, in Philly or up in the Northeast, it's more, you know, your business casual, you know, suit, you know, maybe no tie, but you know, for the most part, you're suited up. You know, so our Fridays typically will be a dress down or more business casual. But I've never been a part of a casual Friday that actually lasts. Right? And when you think about what's acceptable in the corporate environment and what's not acceptable, everybody has kind of different standards and values and you know, what they determine as what's acceptable or what's not, right? It's the, I don't think men should be walking with flip-flops and their toes out in corporate America. I get women, but women do it, so like, I get it, but I don't think that's like a professional thing to do. Right? However, we know it's acceptable for certain reasons, right? When we look at the textbook, we have professionalism as being civil, having polish, having business and dining etiquette, social intelligence, and then soft skills. Like, I look at all these words and I'm still like, what the hell is professionalism? Like, and realistically, we kind of, you kind of know, but it also really depends on the culture and the environment of the company you work with, right? It's I have a buddy who works for Foot Locker, and they're very, you know, sports apparel friendly, clearly because it's Foot Locker. But I'd imagine if you work more at a financial institution, it's probably a little bit more professional and not as casual, right? So it all depends on the culture and the environment, but the biggest challenge is there are unspoken rules. And these unspoken rules can affect our demeanor and our attitude or impact our confidence. So like one of the best ones is the dining etiquette. You go to like a formal dinner, right? What happens? You go to a formal dinner and you're sitting at the table. What's going on with everybody at the table? For what?
See what someone else is gonna do first. What they're gonna.
But what are we looking at? But what are we looking for though? In most cases, I'm being very generic.
Oh.
You sit down at the table is all set. What are you looking at?
Oh.
On the table, what are you looking for? Where you start with what?
Yeah, the fork, right?
The fork. Which drink is mine?
Yeah.
Right? Like when you never know, or not never know, but you can tell there's an uncomfortable, like there's some people that are uncomfortable because it's like, well, wait, which one's mine? And imagine you walk in, you don't know, and you're kind of like, you play small because you look around and wait for somebody to make a move and then you go, right? Now this is that unspoken rule. Sorry. There's bread and drink. So B and D. So like you sit down, you go to the table and I know B and D, and that's my, like, I know this one's my bread and this is my drink. Which also kind of depends, because if you're a lefty, you know, you naturally go for that left one, right? But these again are those unspoken rules that if it wasn't a thing in your household or if you weren't around it, you know, you're going to go into an environment, feel not welcome or uncomfortable, and again, you might play small, right? Being a black or brown face in the majority Caucasian space, being civil is something else. You are going to have to bite your cheek and taste blood, because the way you respond and how it's received is not the same how others respond and how it's received for them. I think I shared with you my former CIO. I mean, we really got into it, right? Their solution for him was to give him, and this was not, I wasn't the only person that he was like aggressive to. Now, I didn't report to HR, but he had been reported to HR multiple times because of his inability to control his emotions and anger. His punishment was taking anger management classes that the company paid for. Which now, you know, if that was a person of color, that might not be the same scenario or situation. Another one, this is a funny one, and I credit the story to my wife. She had a scenario where there was an individual in upper management who, Caucasian individual, who spoke very unconsciously biased. So there was an issue where it was like two Asian individuals going back and forth over something in front of them. And his response was, oh, this is like North Korea versus South Korea. Trying to be funny, lighthearted, probably had no ill intention, but certain things you say can make people feel uncomfortable, right? So, I mean, he got caught in a lot of these spaces, trying to be a good guy, but just says the wrong thing to the wrong people, but unconscious bias, right? That's the excuse. The challenge was this guy was he was like the lead salesperson. He managed the lead sales team. It was the only sales team that was actually like over their numbers. They were like 20% above. He had the opportunity, basically I'm telling the story in a jumbled way because I know this is being recorded and I gotta be respectful for this whole situation. But basically, this guy gets this opportunity to lead the department. They chose between one guy or another guy. They choose this guy, and you know, the people that he was under didn't like him because of the things he said. They basically plotted against him. They went to HR. They reported his racism. They reported everything that was going on. HR had to look at this and handle this whole issue, but the challenge was this Caucasian man brought in a lot of money for the company. So the first thing that was suggested was, because he brings in a lot of company, he needs unconscious bias training. He needs, you know, racial sensitivity, cultural training. We're going to give him all these trainings because he brings in this money. I think something else happened, and then they actually did have to let him go. But you can bet when they let him go, what did he walk off with?
Another job.
Oh, no, not another job. He walked off with a package and like 2 years of a headhunter to find a new job. Like, I mean, you know, so he left in a pretty good position, right? So when we think about being professional, what it means for us is different than what it means for the majority, right? One of my buddies, he's actually the nighttime mayor, or he's the director of nighttime economy for the city of Philadelphia. So they call him the nighttime mayor. But his project is basically to go around the city and meet all of the overnight businesses and kind of say, how can we better meet you? With the purpose of trying to make Philly more of a 24-hour city, because you got New York and DC, and Philly's kind of like the place where students come to, but they don't stay. Last year, every year they do like a Philly house at South by Southwest. This guy comes into the place that they were at. One of the tables, it was called like Love, it was Love Media. And they gave free t-shirts out. And they were like, look, tell us something you love, and you get a free t-shirt. So this Caucasian guy, I'm sitting there and I actually knew the person, and this Caucasian guy walks up and he goes, how do I get a t-shirt? She says, say what you love. He said, I love my job. He said, you can see I got really long hair, and he like kind of put his finger, and his hair is probably down in here. And he said, I was going to cut my hair because I really thought it was unprofessional. But I walked into work and I told some of my coworkers about it, and they told me how like they love my hair. And like I should never have like think about like my hair is not being professional. And like it really made me think, and I love the fact that my job supports me and how I show up. That's okay for him and them. But then now I have students that are in this environment that come in and say, hey, I got dreads. Do I need to cut my hair?
I had a similar experience, and I actually cut my hair maybe 5-6 years ago, kind of similar thinking. And I ended up going out to Denver for a conference, and the keynote speaker had long locks all the way down to his ankles. This is the first person I went up to after he was done speaking. I was like, that's what I needed to see to reinvigorate myself, to be professional in these spaces and to hold myself.
And look at that, right? We're talking about this, what's professional. So our own self-identity, we walk into these environments and we already don't feel confident because we don't feel professional.
That's why I cut my sides and cut my hair off at first. I did the whole thing too. And then I realized that, so they got a crown act too and all this other stuff. You realize that they came up.
Our new operations manager, he came in with dreads and he cut them. I was like, man, why you cut the dreads? And he said, oh, I'm used to all these professional. But then the other week, I was talking to him, I should just kept my hair. He was like, come on, go to these places, these people don't look good. I mean, they be having beer and they little mini fridges, they was drinking beer and wanting to meet. He was like, I was like, you got a crown act and everything, man, you just kept your hair.
Well, but the thing is, there's certain things that we know that people will say it's an unconscious bias to
They
it.
also will hit you with those slugs. And like today, I was working on a new property today, and I'm working this new property. I put on the handle, check the door. Lady comes outside and she's like, "Oh, you're scaring my customer."
Yep.
Man, I almost. I said, all right, cool. I said that was my first time. It was 5 o'clock. I thought you guys were already gone. You know what I'm saying? This is my last run. I had to make sure everything was locked down. Like you said, I gotta handle everything professional. I know the way I look to you, but I still handle my job to the highest standard. To the highest. I got my own security company. They don't even know levels 4, 2. I just do this to make extra money.
Right.
So it's funny how they gonna play you by the way you look. So you gotta handle yourself, and that's why you gotta know how to code switch. All those things you talk about, everything.
Which I'm not, and I'm not mad at it.
I'm not.
Right, like it's the world, right? Like you think about it, like depending on where you came from, sometimes judging a book by cover may like help you to get where you are, you know what I mean? Or keep away from certain things, right? So it's like, I get it and we all do it. So like, we have to be cognizant, in that situation, you may want to be like, who are you? Like you may want to come back with that same aggression, but at what cost will it be to you? Right, it's that being an angry black man, angry black woman, or you're an angry woman and you must be on, like you get all this stuff, and it's because you speak with an aggressive tone or you speak with confidence, and that is perceived a whole total different way, which could be a detriment to your career, a detriment to getting access to open opportunities, right? Like. I think we talked about the compelling thing, right? Did we talk about that last week? Did we go into compelling? So, right, being compelling means evoking interest, attention, and admiration in an irresistible manner, right? When you think about the stuff that you do, like the people you follow, the people you'll fall on the sword for, they're compelling. right? But in order for you to evoke interest, evoke attention, evoke admiration, I gotta know you. You gotta know me, right? So if I'm walking in these environments and I'm setting up this space where I'm like, I'm not like them, they're not like me, let me not talk, I miss opportunities and chances to really create a compelling relationship where ultimately I build champions that, you know, either are for me, for my advancement, or support me when I need to put something together and I may not know information, right? I think that's what we talked about last week. If somebody comes to you and you don't like them, and they say, you know, hey, you know, Victoria, can you help me with, right? And then you don't like that person, you're gonna look at them, okay, right? But you're gonna do it reluctantly, right? So there's a piece of that, you know, one of my favorite readings is 48 Laws of Power.
Oh, I like that.
And you know, it's very challenging, right? It talks about like deception and manipulation, and you know, it basically goes through like the 48 laws of power. You're supposed to go through each law and you know, write down how you broke the law and then how you'll never break that law again. It sounds extremely manipulative when you read it. The first time I read it, like it was like sketchy, but the second time I went back to it, I actually read the preface. And when you read the preface, it talks about even in our innocence, we're deceitful, right? You know, even in our innocence, we're manipulative, right? Like all of us, you know, we talk about it in this class, we're all thinking, what's in it for me? So even if, like it talks about if, you know, you're an upfront, honest person and you want people to not think you're hiding anything, that is a form of deceit. But it's also a play for power. Right, so it talks about how true power is being able to balance people's inability to balance their hunger or desire for power, which is like everything we're talking about here, right? You got to walk into these workspaces and, you know, you got to put on this face, not only as a Black or brown individual, but as a leader, right? Like, if I walk in here and I'm like, look, I'm in that campus all day, give me an hour, don't nobody fool with me, I'm just gonna get my stuff, I'm gonna start talking. And I set that standard, right? If you have any questions, if there's something that's wrong on the website, you're not gonna tell me in that first hour, and it's all because of my demeanor. It's the same thing, you walk in, you know, I'm not a morning person, don't talk to me, I haven't had my coffee, right? Well, you know, the definition of management is getting work done effectively and efficiently through others. Well, if I set that standard and that tone, if there's an issue, you're not going to tell me right away. You're not going to be forthcoming. You're probably trying to come up with a solution, or you're going to just try to act like you didn't see it. And then now, because you don't feel comfortable talking to me, this problem's bigger than what it should have been. Right? You know, so you know, it's like I can show you guys, and I'm sure I said this before, I can show you scientific research, right, that says happy employees produce more revenue. I can show you scientific research that says happy employees earn more over their lifetime than unhappy employees. And we don't really need scientists to know that that's the truth, right? Like, think about your productivity when you're angry. Most of us, when we're angry, you probably can't think, right? You know, unless it's like a pressure situation, you know, you gotta perform. But if you're angry and upset, you're probably like, you know what? F this job, I'll talk to them tomorrow. You know what? It's 5:05, that's a tomorrow problem. And it's really because of your anger, where if you were happy, 5:05, 6:05, 10:05, if you love what you do, it doesn't really feel like work because you love what you do. So like that, I mean, all of it, you know, it's key, it's important to understand, like, how do I go about, and even, you know, Gustavo, in your point, right, to have these tough situations, how do you respond back without letting your emotions control you?
I swear it's the truth, because I've been working 7-11 because the swing shift person quit. So, like you said, 5:05, 5 o'clock rolling around, y'all got somebody to leave. each day. Now, here I am behind on my assignments, and I hate this job. I got so much anxiety because I'm waiting to start my new job. So if something has to give, I'm failing on my homework. But it's like, y'all don't could think about none of this, and I just get fed up with it. Because if somebody quit up and leave like they did, then who's staying? Me.
Yeah.
Because everybody else want to go, but I'm the supervisor, and they're like, okay, this, and I'm like, so then you're in a situation where it's like, if I leave and abandon the site, you have a gap in coverage, if it's not enough, you can lose the account. I'm fired. That's
Right.
grounds for termination, immediate grounds
And
for
that's even
termination.
worse for you,
So
yeah.
I'm like, hello, I said I have to fight to be here today. Like, I literally was like, get somebody here. I'm calling y'all early in the morning because I got class. You already told me, oh, it's another one.
Right.
Pass that message, so I'm like, somebody not here, I'm sorry, but I'm leaving.
Right.
I'm gonna get my man up from my food and then change in the car and get it. So, yeah, I've been
I'm
going
a flex officer, so I gotta go and deal with all these other people's stuff, cause I got management material, I done did this and whoop-de-whoop, and whenever somebody calls out, I gotta go.
And I'm holding down.
I'm on 16-hour shifts.
Yeah, and I'm holding down 2 sites right now. The past few days, I have 1 day off, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week, I just worked 7 in the morning to 11 at night. I'm like, right now, I'm just so tired.
Right.
I'm gonna do these assignments tonight.
But it's really hard to kind of put yourself in that mind frame, right? Like, you're stressed,
I
you're
still got
overworked.
somebody trying to tell me I'm not professional.
Yeah.
You said what you said?
And then I still got some.
Somebody talking.
I'm still not professional.
But you know,
I left, like you said, I left one job because they tried to play me on some professional. I've been there 7 years. I was a school marshal. I done been through this whole thing. I went through HR. I had to tell them like, yo, like, I'm gonna sue y'all, like, basically, because I've been here 7 years and I never not once hear you this. But the fact that these police officers know that y'all just passed this law for me to be able to be on security on campus and my credentials say it, and I'm gonna get paid this, they're jealous. So they trying to put this, oh, I cussed them out when that never happened. The kid tried to spit on me, and that's how the whole situation happened. And then I walked away, I said, I wanna press charges right now. They try to manipulate that whole thing and say, I yelled at the police officer and was like, y'all need to do your motherfucking job and whoop. The only thing about it was I do my job better than anybody else. I had all the camera footage, everything before I even got put on leave. I knew it was coming when it was coming.
Right,
Because
right.
I know everything, I see everything.
Mhm.
So I hear everything. So when it happened, I had all my footage, boom, they put me on leave for like months.
Right.
Half the year, they started making up rumors. People was like, man, yo, we heard like this happened to you and boom. I said, I'll be back. Summertime came around, I've been half the year, came back, they said, we want you to resign. I said, let me tell you why it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna prove that I ain't do shit wrong.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I did all that, boom, did what I needed to do, told them what happened, handled my business. They seen that I didn't do nothing wrong, gave them the right footage, they was able to tell what I said, trying to play me on, I still had to come back, even though I still didn't say nothing, I still had to come back. Good thing the principal was, you know what I'm saying, black, so I was on my side, it was good, and I did everything for her, handled all the guns, caught everything that ever happened, always handled myself professional, because, they even try to like downplay me to a point, they try to make up a rumor that I try to ask out a senior at the school because the girls, there was a lot of the girls were like, oh, he's handsome, he's attractive, he's that too good. And all the gangster kids love me because I'm from the street and I understand that, so I was able to speak to them and handle that. And I had like, you know what I'm saying, little white kids coming to me and be like, what's up, Mr. Browder? And they trying, you know what I'm saying, because I'm handling my job, so I know they're hating it. So the whole thing, they still try to play me and try to say all this stuff. I beat that, came back. I beat this other thing, came back. They try to say before I could have a gun on campus, they try to say I had a gun way before, until I finally got the credentials and all this other stuff. Man, they try to play me on everything possible.
There's always gonna be this red tape you gotta go through, right? So even this is like, you're it's chess, not checkers.
Always.
Right,
I said,
being present, being aware. I think that becomes a lot of our problems, right? Not being aware, we really let other people control our destiny, right? And then also what I love about this whole course and this 3x3 writing process and how you think about even communicating to others. I'd argue the way that we do present ourselves or the way that we write controls how people respond to us, right? And we'll talk about that too when we get into the negative messaging, like just simple things that could impact you depending on how you actually deliver your messages, all right? But so what I love talking about this professionalism, it's unspoken rules, right? There's a whole bunch of unspoken rules that we don't have and or that we don't know, we're unfamiliar with. But the most important part is, this is why you want to have champions, right? This is why you want to go into your company and you want to introduce yourself to people you don't work with, right? Like, I don't want to make friends with peers. I actually want to go in and see other leaders and say, hey, what do you do? Like, can I sit down and let me learn more about your job and, kind of, I just want to learn. Why have you been here? How long have you been here, right? Like, asking those
How did you
questions
get
and all
here?
that. How did you get here? Yeah.
That's the question.
But by doing that, remember, you're creating a relationship, but you're also becoming compelling to somebody in that conversation. Which, if it's somebody that's in another department or not your direct peer, they may volunteer you for things that your direct manager or reports won't volunteer you for, right? Or when somebody throws dirt in your name, you have people that are around that can speak to your character that may not work with you right away. So this also really is one of the biggest challenges for the Black or for minorities in corporate America, right? Is we walk in and we're not like everybody else. It's you're a Black or brown face in a majority Caucasian space, all right? And we have to assimilate to their culture, right? And like, it's so uncomfortable to assimilate to their culture, right? Half of us, we've been doing this for how damn long anyway, right? And it's now starting to be a point where we can be authentically who we are, which, I talked about this last week. I still don't agree with that, right? Like, I don't, like, I might, like, that whole being authentically Black thing, like, it sounds good, but how do people receive you, right? Like, because ultimately, it's not what you know or who you know, but who knows you. And when people refer you for other opportunities, you're on their, like if I refer you or if I say, hey, I have this opportunity, I think you would be a really great manager, a really great leader. Well, if you bomb, it's a reflection of me, right? It's what I find about this whole diversity and inclusion thing, right? Is when you think all right, everybody here has a job, all right? How many of you would tell your friends about job openings at your job?
Well, no. Oh, yeah, I do.
You would tell them, would you champion for them to get in? You would?
Yeah, I know my people.
I get a lot of people that are
I
like,
myself with people that's great. That's what I feel like I'm all my people, I definitely would.
I get people, well, so what I find is that we end up actually getting jobs that we don't like. And then all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, we got jobs, you don't want to work here, man, come on. Right, so what I find is that when you look at job opportunities, I think the stat was probably in 2019 that 70% of all job hires came from referrals. When you really look at like inside these companies, right, it's a majority Caucasian company with not many Black or brown in the company with representation, especially in leadership. So if most of my recruitment is coming from referrals, then you understand why there's not much diversity in the organization. And then I challenge the individuals that are, the minority, you probably wouldn't bring your friends into that company. One, because if I bring you in and you act a fool or if you don't represent me right, it's on me. And then two, if I bring you in and I bring you, you're just a representation of me. Right? So I may not like my job. And why would I tell you about this job and coming in here? Why would I have you deal with my stress? Like, I know you want a job and you need a job, but you don't want to work here because you're gonna be stressed just like me. And then I look bad because you're going to respond in a different way than what I would. Right? Like, so, we tend to not tell our friends or those in our network about open opportunities in the companies that we're at. And I'd even argue we might not even think our friends are qualified enough to work in the companies that we're at for the roles that are open. So there's 6 dimensions of professional behavior. We got appearance and appeal, tolerance and tact, honesty and ethics, reliability and diligence, collegiality and sharing, and then courtesy and respect. I was taught you don't train somebody how to do your job. So this collegiality thing is a little bit challenging, depending on what it is you're training somebody to do. right? But this is also why I suggest that you always go out and hunt your own project, right? You learn, you provide a solution, and then you train. But continuously seek for providing a new solution, because the more you train, like, the thing, think about, any job opportunity you have, you expect more opportunity and growth every year and more money every year. Like, those are standards that we all expect. The people you lead expect the same thing as well, right? So there's one piece where when you train people, you think that's a leadership thing. But if you're training people to do what the regular job is and not training people to do solutions that are innovative, which one's the better direction, which one looks better for, promoted opportunities. Professionalism leads to success. So good manners and business-like professional demeanor are among the top soft skills that employers seek in job candidates. Projecting and maintaining a professional image can make a real difference in helping you obtain and keep the job of your dreams. Again, the challenge for us is that may work for him. All right, it doesn't work for everybody else, but we have to be strategic in corporate America and shake hands, kiss babies. It's not what you know or who you know, but ultimately who knows you. All right, so again, chess not checkers. Be very strategic in who you develop relationships with and why. And also be very cognizant of the things that you do discuss and talk about. In corporate America, the most disadvantaged individual is a Black woman, a part of the LGBTQ community. Woman, African American, LGBTQ plus community. She's a triple minority. You walk in, you don't know how to identify with the people because you're a minority at 3 different levels. But again, I refer back to week 1, is it what you say or what they say? So a lot of times we walk into these rooms with our own doubts, right? And then, you believe what you tell yourself, right? So the example I said, if I walk around here and I told you guys, look, I'm a shitty professor, but you're going to learn a lot. Eventually, you're going to tell everybody if they ask you about me, hey, he's a shitty professor, but I promise you'll learn a lot. But you didn't say it. That wasn't your perception of me. That was what I told you about me, and you just took it and ran with it. Right? So a lot of times, the things that, like I'd argue is what we say or what they say. Right? What are the things you say about yourself? What are the things you say you can't do? What are the things you say you're not good at? I challenge, it's not that you can't do it, it's not that you're not good at it. You never really gave yourself time or an effort to even try to attempt it or to attempt to improve that. Gaining an adequate edge, again, this is stuff you guys all know. This is also another good one too. Remember, communication is a trained ability, right? You're not just born with it. Another thing that I find that's an issue for minorities is the way we present ourselves. I had a student here who had mentioned that she was being promoted, or she was training her managers. And, when you guys do presentations for me, it's more of a get comfortable being uncomfortable thing. Like, I don't critique how you present. Like, the only way you get comfortable being up here in front of people, like, it's literally proper planning prevents piss poor performance, right? Like, if you're not familiar with the material, if you haven't practiced this material, most likely you're going to be uncomfortable talking in front of people, and it's very obvious. Now, what I love about the technology and then this practice thing is that when you record yourself and then go back and listen to yourself, one, recording yourself reading an introduction is uncomfortable. Speaking to yourself in front of a mirror, reading something that's a speech is uncomfortable. But being able to run through it, to test run, to practice, allows you to hear certain things that you may not enunciate on. And if you record yourself, you can see and hear, certain triggers and so forth. So you'll be more aware of how to not only to slow down your presentation, but also where you may need to enunciate more or, slow down how you explain something. All right. But another thing with communication, your voice is like a tool to control the audience. So if I really wanted you guys to pay attention to me and see what it is that I was talking about, I might sit here and lower my voice. Now, when I lower my voice, it causes you to actually perk up and listen, like everybody kind of stopped what they were doing and looked up because I lowered my voice. So me changing the inflection of my voice and how I'm talking and where I'm talking, moving, like all of this stuff helps me to actually control the audience and the engagement with the audience. So be cognizant of your voice. Like for me, I know I have a very monotone voice. So even when I do change my voice or pitch, right, I also know I'm from Philly. I speak a lot quicker than most people here in Texas. So sometimes I gotta slow down because, maybe you don't understand me as clearly because I speak quicker. And then I use filler words. So my filler words could take away from the understanding, but I also know I'm a talk to thinker. So if I'm a talk to thinker, the only way that I can slow that stuff down is I told you guys being comfortable with the pause. A lot of us aren't comfortable with that pause, that quiet moment. Again, I can take away all of my fillers, all my uhs and ums by literally just pausing, which is another utility I use where, another engagement, audience engagement I use, where I pause and I look around the room. And what this allows, some of you have a quicker thought process than others. So even in that pause, it allows everybody to think. And then eventually I might get more engagement from people that might not be as quick to speak. Be very, very, again, pay attention to how you pronounce words. That's what I skipped that part. The one student that was training her managers, she came up here and she was giving her presentation and she was saying, specifically, right? So understand how you enunciate your words, right? Like for me, even knowing the words I don't say well, like I know with water, right? Like now I say water, and I'm like, I'm from Philly, I said water, not water. But I use it as a way to like laugh, and then we can have a conversation about it. Oh, you're from Philly, and you know what I mean? Like I use it as a way to become compelling, evoke interest. By saying a word I know I don't say well, but I say it this way because I'm from here.
It's gonna say yes, I'm gonna say yeah. I got
Oh.
work ask me something, I'm like, yeah.
You don't say yes,
Instead
no,
of
no,
saying- I say yes, no, no, if you ask me something without thinking, I'll be like, yeah. And I'll be having to catch my, say yes, yes is the great thing, professional.
And getting people's feedback. One of my biggest challenges when communicating, when I'm listening to people, I say right. So like my confirmation for that I'm listening and I'm hearing, like I'm actively listening is right. I had somebody come to me and say, well, when you say right to me, it kind of seems like you're like snooty and like you're smarter than me. Like, because the opposite of right means it's wrong. So if I don't get your right, that means what I'm saying is wrong. And I said, right. I said, my bad, you're right. But again, within that, get feedback from people, right? When you have difficult conversations, give it a break, let it breathe, and then go back and say, hey, I wanted to just come back and see how I came across. This was my intention. Did I deliver that message? Why or why not?
I had to do that today with one of the site supervisors. I came in, to the new site, I couldn't find it. He was like, I came in and I was trying to explain to him how he told me, and I was already late. I called the other person and let him know that I needed to log in, whatever. I had gave him the whole rundown. And then he kept asking me questions to try to understand. And then at the end, he was like, oh, so you were late. Oh, it doesn't even matter. You were late. I was like, yeah, that's what I was explaining to you. And I kind of got like a little firm with him. Because I was like, well, obviously not listening to what I said. I went down the whole thing. Why I was outside, where I was at, and
Right.
time frame, whatever.
Did you say that? You're not listening to what I'm saying?
I didn't say that, but that's how I interpreted it that way. So I had to come back later on because he was like, he tried to say that I had an attitude. Because when I spoke to him, like I said, I was already. I got firm. I said, no, I said that. Or I said, this is what I said. I already told you I was late, this is where I was at, this is what. But he interpreted like I had an attitude, so when he came back, I had to let it breathe. He left, he walked out, when we came, I came back and said, hey, man, I just wanna make sure that you understand that I wasn't trying to come at you like that.
Right.
But this is what the situation was, and this is why, let me explain. There was these people that weren't in contact, they didn't answer their phone, they weren't answering, so I was frustrated in that moment.
Right.
And when you asked me the question over, you know what I'm saying, I took it this way. So
Right.
my apologies for me taking it this way, and I came at you like this, boom, boom. And after that, the rest of the workday, because he had to train me to cite, because I had to take over because he was citing, so I had to take over when he cited me, but so I took over the site for him. I mean, after that, it was all good, like he understood.
You know, and this is sometimes that taste in blood, right? Being able to be humble enough to go back and apologize, but really more for insight, and also it's for later on, I want to make sure I don't cross this path again, like what was it that, and so I'm cognizant, right? But again, even in going in that moment, I'm creating a compelling moment where I'm invoking some type of interest or admiration because I came back and said, hey, look, we had an exchange, there was a little bit of a frustration in there. Look, let me explain where I was coming from, but ultimately I want to make sure that, like, how can, you know, next time we make sure we don't have this issue, right? Like, so taking that, you know, using those moments, being able to, you know, again, kind of circle back, but ask feedback. Like so I'd share with you guys, I'm the immediate past president for the National Black MBA. Basically a whole bunch of volunteers running a business, right? People want to go do one thing and other people want to do another thing. And then you get these group of people that are volunteering and might be butting heads, right? So, you know, when these situations happen, I always go back and ask like, hey, you know, I just wanted to apologize, you know, things got heated, but, you know, how could I better present this? Or, you know, now you had time to think about it, right? You know, tell me what you think now. Is there anything that, you know, maybe I didn't hear, right, that I was missing, right? So using that as an opportunity, again, to kind of develop a relationship, but also learn more about yourself from how other people receive you, all right? But pronouncing your words, I actually had a gentleman come up to me years ago, and I forget what I was saying, but I said something in a very lax, like slang way. And the guy said, I'll say it was like saying ideal versus idea, right? And he's like, hey, Dayron, look, I know, you know, I know you know it's idea, but you keep on saying ideal instead of idea. And I'm not telling you this because I think you're stupid, but I'm telling you this because I had somebody come to me and, you know, identify a word I was using incorrectly. And he was telling me how when I was in other spaces, people looked at me as if I was ignorant. So I don't want you to walk around and, you know, be using this word in this way or incorrectly, and then have others around you think you're ignorant or you're incapable because of something that's a really quick fix.
Oh, may I say something? Like the word, I have to like conscious acts, because now I say acts, but some people say acts, but yeah. So when you say ask a question. Acts.
Being cognizant of it, and then a lot of times just slowing down, right? That's you know, supposedly.
I've been so tired lately at work, I've been using all them words, and I've been sleeping. I've been coming out too much, because I've been so burnt out.
I mean, there's a balance, right? You have to be able to be you, but there's also the understanding how people receive, right? So again, you know, record yourself, you know, monitor your tone and work on your pitch and your inflection, right? Like try different things, like try to like project your voice different ways. Most of us, we talk from our chest, not from our diaphragm. Just how you breathe and where you actually get your air from changes the inflection of your voice, right? But practice. Prior proper planning prevents piss poor performance. Piss poor performance produces pain. It's like, let's see here. You know, this is one of the things I actually love about here, on this, you know, on, being in this environment, you know, people address each other by title, like it's Mr., Mrs., you know, doctor, you know, professor, like there's, what I take away from that is, right, like, there's a level of respect. Like, if you don't know me, don't call me by my first name if I didn't tell you to call me by my first name. Right? Like, and that's in certain situations and scenarios, right? Again, in this environment, it's more defined, right? You have PhDs, like, they got these degrees, respect them for the degrees that they got, right? But I think in the minority environment, we also have to be able to respect titles, where you'll have some individuals like, I'm an adult, you're an adult, I'm gonna call you by your first name like you call me by my first name, but it's the energy behind it, right? There's no respect. It's not to say that if I'm an adult, I can't call another adult by their first name, but I take the respect to say, hey, I'm Dayron, what's your name, right? Or, hey, I'm Professor Bowers, like, or hey, how would you prefer that I, acknowledge you, right? Like, some people you say, yes, ma'am to, and, it's, well, ma'am is my mother, right? So, but until I have that relationship and, that understanding with you, I'm very formal, right? Like, sending emails, you'll notice here, like, when Miss Megan Espinor comes, she's on the younger side. I still call her Miss Espinor around the campus. You know what I mean? But it's more for the process for the traditional students to learn that, just be respectful when you address people, right? Choose appropriate topics. This is that code switching thing. We talked about this last week. Like, I felt uncomfortable going into corporate America talking about, I love power, right? Like, there used to be it was like they did like a State Farm spin on, like, things not to do to your minority coworkers or something like that. And it was like, the Jake from State Farm comes when the accidents happen. And this was like Blake from whatever it was.
Philly.
So, oh my God, your hair is so nice. And then they hit the button. Oh, it's Blake from State Farm. Hey, don't touch black people's hair. Right? Like, stuff like that. And then it was, they had the one guy, he comes into work and he was like, yeah, I was just watching Game of Thrones. And he's like, oh, you watch Game of Thrones? You're one of those? I never would have thought that was you. And Blake can say, hey, black people do watch these type of things, and they're into, so it's kind of one of those things. But again, dual perspective. Like, I'm very much so, like, I code switch certain things about my lifestyle. I just, we used to actually have a gym at my credit union, and I would go in there and I'd play country music just so that everybody came in. And they're like, who the hell's in there? And they see me, they're expecting hip hop. But like, it's if you ever get in the car with somebody that's Caucasian, they always want to turn on hip hop, right? Like, no, don't turn your radio station because you think that's what I listen to. Like, this is your car. Listen to what you're listening to. Don't try to assimilate to me. Like, I'm in your, so that's just me personally. But again, there's definitely a double standard at all times, right? Avoid negative remarks. Again, that's kind of one of those things. It sucks, but you do have to control. Like, I don't give a shit what people think about me, right? I really don't, right? But I do care, because ultimately, if you like me, you're more inclined to do work with me and work for me. So I don't care what you think, but I do care, because the more that you find me compelling, the more I can be like, hey, Grace, can you go ahead and do this for me? And you'll be like, oh yeah, no problem. That's nothing. Compared to if you don't like me, you're not going to respond to my email really quick, or you're just not going to respond at all, or you just tell me no, right? Listen to learn. This also has been very big. Remember, the moment you identify something as a problem is when it actually occurs. Right? So the moment you identify something a problem is actually when the problem occurred, not whatever the incident was. It's the moment that you identified it as a problem, that's when it becomes a problem. Right? So like, if I'm sitting here like this and I don't find this as a problem, no problem. But if somebody doesn't like loud noise and you hear this loud noise, it's a problem. Now your mood is changed, it's obstructed. Especially in a diverse environment, especially in some of the the challenging conversations we've been talking about being a black or brown face in a majority Caucasian space, we need to not only be able to just listen, but also have patience before we respond.
I ain't gonna lie, that's my hardest part. Out of everything, sometimes that's my hardest part because I know I might know something or somebody is like coming at you, like earlier today when that lady told me, I was like, I know I didn't touch the door at all today, but you came at me as if I touched it 3 or 4 times. And I'm like, and I had to catch myself.
You wanna respond quick, you wanna respond this way, but there, you gotta have that patience because of perception, right? So, understand that, like, I understand your emotions and your triggers, right? This is why what we talked about 2 weeks ago, as far as really going back and understanding, like, why you are the way you are, or why you respond to certain situations the way you do, right? Like, most of the principles you live on, I argue are principles that were determined or created by a child. So it's the 11-year-old child that says, I would never drink, I'd never smoke, and I'd never do this, and I'd never do this around kids. And like, you have these principles of what you would never do and what people shouldn't do based off of some trauma that you may have experienced as a child. So you're still living in that and judging off of that, right? So again, kind of, go back and judge your preconceived notions, right? Really restructure and reshape and have an understanding, because that also helps us communicate better in this diverse world, right? Give sincere and specific praise. This is also, it's like a Jedi mind trick to networking, right? Like, so like, giving people compliments, like, hey, you did a good job. Hey, that was really great. It's actually something I learned here, right? When I was giving students a 100, if I didn't leave any feedback, I was getting students coming back to me later on in the week saying, hey, I didn't know if what I did was right or wrong. And I'm like, you got a 100. What are you talking about? Well, you didn't say anything to me. So I've learned that I have to, even when you do perfect, I have to say, hey, this is a great job, no errors, great reflection. And then that gives people that confidence to know that what they did was right, right? Another thing, again, when we talk about this compelling, giving people compliments, like, and it's Linden, right? Yeah. Linden, nice tie, man. I hate the colors, but I really like the stripes, right? So, right. But, sometimes like that, I might sit here and, I might be walking by and I'm like, Linden, what's going on, man? How you doing? Man, I really like that tie, man. Those little moments, right? And even the fact of like the whole, crossing hands, like right here, like I'm not a threat to you, right? Like, so like, or if you see somebody and, I tap your shoulder, like I get into your personal space where excuse me, I'm so sorry. If I'm like this, hey, how you doing, big? All right, like, this is uncomfortable as hell, right? Like, now, that is really uncomfortable. But here, just going like this, does this feel uncomfortable to you? Yeah. But me and her personal, like, this feels uncomfortable, right? So there's Jedi mind tricks to how we network and communicate with people where we don't feel like we're a threat. When I'm in your personal space like that, I'm a threat. When I cross in and I show you I'm no threat, you're like this is like serious. Like I'm telling you, like, in my personal feelings, like it's uncomfortable. But then when we're shaking hands and I'm like, it's literally doesn't have that same, am I lying? Like it doesn't have that same weird feeling, right? So there's like this Jedi mind tricks to how we communicate, how we network. And again, people are always thinking, look, what's in it for me? So when I want to be compelling. So I want to give sincere praise, right? I want to, because the more I praise you, the more you probably like me. Receiving workplace criticism gracefully, listen without interrupting. I'd also have the initiative to ask for workplace criticism, right? Ask people you work with, like, hey, what do you think I could do to be a better employee or teamwork or teammate? Like, ask and listen and take it, accept it, don't fight it, like receive it. Like, thank you for that feedback. I know that probably wasn't easy to tell me, but it really helps me for, my future and even how we collaborate and work together.
I had an employee years ago that told me that she said to me that stuck with me for years past is when I was giving her feedback, at the end of it, she wanted to provide just helpful critiques and criticism, not just towards me, but just in general. And she would say, I'm just saying this for me. So even though, I don't want a response, even though it's not gonna go there, I'm saying it for me to know that I've said what I need to say to be successful in my job. And when she said that, I was like, okay, even, it was a small situation where, yeah, I moonlight as a veterinary technician at a hospital, and at that point, I was the go-to person for blood. So anytime that someone needed blood, I was that person that they were going to. So it got to the point where I was already taking that initiative. I was seeing that people were struggling. I was already ready with my syringe, like, okay, I'm here if you need me. And it got to the point where she felt like she wasn't advancing in her career because I was there ready to step in whenever they were struggling. And she was like, I understand you're good at it, but I'm not gonna get better if
You keep going.
Yep. Yep. I was like, okay, I hear that now. You have to say that for yourself, and you have to put yourself in a position where you have to keep attempting, keep attempting.
Right. You gotta advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
All right. You got determine the speaker's intent. Usually when somebody's giving criticism, right, they're doing it from a good place for the most part. But, again, this is why I encourage you to ask people up front. Like, you guys, has anybody done a 360 review before? No one? So in a 360 review, you basically, you would get a review from your manager, a review from your peer, and a review from somebody that works in another department, but not directly with you. So it's a 360 view of who you are as an employee, from your manager's perspective, from your peer's perspective, and then from the people in your company. I do my own 360 review. But again, remember, this is chestnut checkers. I'm trying to develop relationships, and I want people to feel comfortable talking to me and telling me when I did something wrong or when I did something good. So if I go to people and I ask for feedback and constructive criticism, they're going to be more forthcoming when I might be slipping in certain areas as well. And again, they'd probably be more willing to volunteer my name for certain opportunities because of how engaging I am and how coachable I am. I'm showing I'm coachable and I can receive criticism.
It gives them that focus on the things you do well too.
Very true. Very true. Acknowledge what you're hearing, right? So don't defend. Just say, hey, look, I understand, what you communicated. Thank you for sharing that to me. I received it. Keep it simple. And then paraphrase what's said. So if I'm hearing you right, this is what happened. This is how you felt. And then you would suggest I go this way about it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Let me see here. It's over time here, but I do want to go into so teams. This is probably the biggest challenge at this university is teamwork. From a traditional aspect, just a question: who likes working in teams? Raise your hand. Who prefer to work by themselves? So this is number one
I've done it
problem.
for too long. I'm on CE, I got 4 classes left, I'm trying to get it out of here in a hand.
Well, this is the problem, right? Think perspective, think mentality, right? You come into a situation where the adult degree program, you're forced to work in teams. The majority of the students in this classroom don't want to work in teams. So I'm forced to work in teams. What am I if I'm forced to work in teams? When I meet my team, I'm probably what? If I don't want to be here, probably unhappy, right?
Yeah.
I'm probably a little stressed. I'm probably already like, well, I don't want to be here. I don't feel like doing this. Now I got to go meet these people. I don't feel like talking to these people. I've been at work all day. This happened, that happened, like all this, right? Like you're bringing all this stress in. So when our teams aren't successful, we wonder why. Most of the people that come into that team environment don't want to be there in the first place. So the teams aren't productive. right? One of the things that I mentioned when it comes into management, right? In order to lead people, you gotta be able to lead yourself, right? And like a lot of that stuff, a lot of our stress, a lot of our issues come from a lack of or an inability to manage our time. Right? Literally, when you think about your stress is stemmed from time management. Do you know how you reduce your stress? What do you think the first thing to do to reduce your stress? What would the first thing be? Breathe. But just in general, what's the first thing if you needed to reduce your stress, like in the long term? What are some habits you could do?
Mine is saying no, I have too much on my plate.
You're saying no, too much on your
Yeah, I have
plate?
too much.
But no, what can you do to control outside of saying no?
Set guidelines. Guidelines.
Set guidelines, turn phone off. Let's start with rest. Sleep. If you want to reduce, if you want to reduce your stress, sleep 6 to 8 hours a night. What's the second one? If the first one is sleep, what's the second one? Eat what? Eat healthy. What's the problem about eating healthy?
Yeah.
It's expensive and
Causes stress.
it causes stress, but it's expensive. It takes time.
It's not really that expensive.
Right, to eat healthy, like it's easier to go to Chick-fil-A and pay $10 and get this quick little drive-through meal than it is to go and pick fresh vegetables every day, right? Like, I can't DoorDash or Instacart vegetables or fruit. Like, I need to pick my vegetables and my fruit. Like, I'm not DoorDashing milk because I want the milk that's like the latest date. Right, I'm not picking the first one up. Like if I get a pack of chicken, I need the chicken. I don't want the one that's tomorrow. I need 4 or 5 days on this chicken, right? Like, so eating healthy, there is no way to like do it in a not a non-time consuming manner. You gotta buy food fresh every day. It's expensive. You gotta cook that food. Then you gotta clean and do your dishes. Like that's 3 hours of your time to eat healthy. So if you want to reduce your stress, sleep more, eat healthy. What do you think the third thing is to do?
Exercise.
Exercise. So sleep more, eat healthy, exercise. What's the problem with these? If I don't manage my time well, I'm probably not getting good sleep. If I don't manage my time well, I'm probably eating fast food. If I don't manage my time well, I'm probably not going to the gym. The fourth thing is meditation. If you don't sleep, eat healthy, or go to the gym, I guarantee you, you're not even thinking about meditation. When you look at meditation, your brain is a computer. When you go to sleep, what typically happens during sleep time? What are you doing?
Feeling.
You're dreaming. So your brain never shuts down when you go to sleep. You go to sleep typically and you have something on your mind, you wake up and what? That same thing's on your mind, right? You're tired still because you didn't really get a good sleep because you had this stuff on your mind. So meditation is actually the shutdown of the computer, which is your brain. Like our brains are like our laptops. Who shuts their laptop down every day? Most of us keep this damn thing on, right? And you shut it down if it forces you to restart and update, right? Other than that, I keep it on, right? For the most part, right? It's the same thing for your brain. We never shut it down. So meditation, what it actually does is it causes you to take a focus, just shut down, try to actually stop my thoughts, which is the hardest part about meditation. If you've ever tried to meditate, like you sit for like 5 seconds and then all of a sudden you start thinking these thoughts just start coming into your head. Like it's really hard to not think anything, right? Even the thought of not thinking anything is thinking something. So to have this aura or this zenful moment of no thoughts in your brain, but you taking the control, that's meditation, right? It's also, you can't live in this world without breathing. And the one thing we don't think about is our breath. So what I also love about meditation is for you to stop thinking about for you to stop your mind, for you to stop your thoughts, you focus on breathing in and breathing out. And now the most thought I might do is breathing in for 4 seconds and breathing out for 4 seconds. And that's my thought process. But like to take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then just have nothing is the most peaceful thing you can have in like controlling all these things in your head. We tangented on this, but again, when we're working in teams, most of the people that we're working with don't want to be in teams, so we wonder why our teams aren't successful, right? We wonder why we're stressed working in teams. When you're looking at forming teams, understand that from a management perspective, teams improve employee morale, teams help organizations to make better decisions, teams increase productivity, they help you to get buy-in, they help you to create faster responses, they also help the company become less resistant to change, and they reduce risk. But the problem is people have to be put in teams correctly for the correct purpose with the correct mission. 4 phases of team development. First is forming. You're selecting your members. You become acquainted. You build trust and form a collaborative culture. So again, when we look at the challenges we experience in teams, what don't you do when you work in teams?
But I don't know, this is my, like I said, this is my senior, my last year, so when I had in my site group, like, at some point, we formed this, like, our teams at some point were structured to where, like, almost every time you went to the next class, you had some of the.
You had the team, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
And then it was just boom, 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 it just, we already know how to handle it.
How you work together.
Yeah, so, like, I feel like at some point, this becomes something that happens, you do all these things at some point once you break.
So, but at some point, but you're letting the some point control when that happens instead of being strategic and controlling it on your own, right? So the first thing that we need when we form teams is to become acquainted and build trust. Most of us, and let's put it in an academic environment, right? You work in groups and there's an assignment. You simply say, okay, you're going to do this part, you do this part, and then you do that part. Everybody cool? Okay, and then we break, right? And then all of a sudden, like, you know, there's silence. We come in next week and I hope everybody did the work, right? Like, I haven't heard from Jackie in a couple of days and I sent an email, Jackie didn't respond, and class is at 6 and it's 4 o'clock. What's going on? Now, Jackie had life stuff to deal with. She was up all night, couldn't do the work. She's working on it, but she gets it in last minute. Everybody's stressed, everybody's panicking. But the reason that happened is because when we formed as a group, we split up the work. When you form a group, the first thing you want to do is set a goal. Why are we here? What's the purpose? What's the mission? If you don't set a goal, a purpose, or a mission, we have no reason to collaborate effectively. We have no purpose. So I argue when we come into this academic environment and we work in teams, right? I'm not sitting here and saying, hey, look, I need a 4.0 in this class. I'm just curious, what's your GPA? What's your GPA? What's your GPA? Right? Now, somebody might be like, oh, I got a 2.3, right? And we might laugh at it. And I'm like, you know, but they're like, oh, no, I got a 2.3. But look, I got a lot of work going on. I'm balancing, you know, family, a job, all this stuff, right? Well, in that conversation, remember, I'm getting acquainted with people and, you know, I'm just like asking a generic question. I can understand your work ethic based off your GPA. So if I can do this in a way where I'm non-judgmental, I can understand and I can make an assessment that would be pretty good that anybody that has above a certain GPA probably is going to get this work done. Whoever doesn't have above a 2.5 GPA probably struggles managing time, and I may need to support that person more than I have to support this person over here. So the problem we look at on an academic level, there's in groups, there's the 4.0 student and the 2.0 student, and they come together. The 4.0 student has different expectations and different working styles than the 2.0 student. But they both expect, hey, we need to get this work done, but it's different levels of what getting this work done means. And if the 4.0 person doesn't communicate to the 2.0 expectations, the 4.0 is stressed. The 4.0 might try to take all the work and do it on their own, which when we talk in terms of management and getting work done effectively and efficiently through others, if you're just taking on the brunt of the work yourself, that's not effective nor efficient. But it all comes from how we started and formed the team. Remember, happy people produce more. So if I form a team and everybody, I know people don't want to be here, and we're not even talking to even get to know each other, their background, and mind you, within reason, right? Like, and it's also why I say practice how you play, because what might work for Jackie is not what works for you, right? Like how you say it, what you say, the way you go around it, it's not going to be the same. But you practice how you play, find your words, find your way to kind of talk and position certain things. There might be some patience that needs to happen. You might have to have a process put in place, but still, how do you kind of go through this? Ultimately, I need to form this team and have a collaborative culture that we trust each other. The number one rule to leadership is to trust but verify. Again, we come into teams, we split up the work, and I never verify your work. I just think you're going to do it, and the grade ends up becoming the grade. Second is storming. This is where you identify problems, collect and share information. You establish decision criteria and prioritize goals. What's the other problem when we look at this from an academic level? Why don't we go and form groups this way? Or why don't we go in this approach? Why don't we go in a forming and a storming approach? What's like the biggest challenge?
You gotta, we go straight to storm, and we said, we get one.
Yeah, like I walked into this group and I'm like, man, I don't feel like being here. Look, this is, you know, look, we don't even get here. We get here, right? We get to alternative, well, not even, we're here. We select the opportunities, like we're in this space. We never take the time to, again, get acquainted, build trust, and establish a collaborative culture. How do you do that?
In 5 weeks.
Said what?
And in 5 weeks.
And in 5 weeks. But corporate America, there could be certain projects you're on for 5 weeks or 6 or for 2 years. So we still got to have this collaboration and be effective and efficient. But you practice how you play. Leadership is a choice, not a title. Important thing, again, this step, get acquainted, build trust, form collaboration, and then the most important thing, before you move on, get one common goal. Because the other problem that happens when we don't have a common goal and common understanding, and I'll add to that common goal to say what the consequences are. Right? So when I get acquainted, hey, look, I'm really strict with my time. You know, I have these responsibilities. Typically, I work between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. Right? So if you're ever going to send me emails, know that you're probably not going to get a response from me if it's 9 p.m. And if you need a response from me at 9 p.m., text me. Because I'm not looking at my email until the morning. Right? I usually do my assignments 2 days early because I like to give myself time to read and do editing. Right? Is everybody okay with having the assignments done in 2 days? And what do you think the challenge would be? Right? Like, you know, I'll ask, and I wouldn't even, like, I'll say, hey, that's my stone. Hey, Gustavo, tell me, how long do you normally take yours? What's your work ethic like? Or what's your work time frame like? When do you work on yours? Like, I'll ask these questions, but I'll ask everybody to get a better understanding of everybody's work style, right? Whether they're late night owls or early morning birds. And then how I go about leading the team is based off of those things. And then setting the consequence. Hey, look, would you guys agree? I'm sorry, I'm being a stickler. You guys know I need an A on this project because I have a 4.0 and I got to keep it. Is it okay if we all agree that we'll complete the work 2 days before? Look, I'll do the editing 2 days before. And I mean, if I could get somebody else's help to do some of the editing as well. But can we all agree to that? And look, if you don't make it within this 2-day thing because we've all agreed, your name's not going to be included on paper. Can we agree to that? Everybody agrees to the consequence. Now, when the consequence happens, I'm not telling you, hey, you know, you're not on the paper, you did bad. Hey, we agreed that we would have this work done by this date, and you didn't meet that agreement. So your name's not on the paper. There's no argument, there's no fussing. And when we get into this next slide or next PowerPoint talking about positive and negative messages, you'll see where we can control the conversation. But again, with building teams, being acquainted builds trust, form a collaborative culture, and then I'm gonna go down here to prioritizing and setting goals. You'll get more into that in principles of management, where you'll talk about setting SMART goals, which are specific, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're realistic, and they're timely. So this also becomes another challenge because we don't put times around, like we don't set goals and we don't put times when work is going to be completed. So we become stressed when people don't work the way we expect them to, or when people don't complete things the way we expect them to. But I'd argue, are you stressed because they didn't do something, or are you stressed because you never communicated in the first place? I went way over in those conversations. Let me get into chapter 6, and then I'll go into chapter 7. For sake of time, so I want to get you guys at least, I want to get into the assignments, which I'm gonna need 15 minutes, so we're probably looking at 8:30 right now. But at 8:30, I want to, get you guys in teams. We'll do 3 teams of 3 and 1 team of 2. And then we'll talk about what our assignments will be for next week. And go from there. All right, so positive messages. So positive messages share the following traits. They're routine and straightforward. They help workers conduct everyday business. They make up the bulk of workplace communication, and they're required for they require solid writing skills. Know that when you give a positive message, you can pretty much give a positive message on any channel, right? I can text a positive message, I can tweet a positive message, I can communicate a positive message, I can call a positive message. You don't really mind the medium that's used for a positive message. I'm gonna go through this. I'm not even really gonna go through this information. Business letters, in today's world, business letters are a form of legal documentation, right? So I really don't see business letters going anywhere, except for you opting in, instead of having a letter mailed to your address, you get an email. All right, but if you apply for a credit card and they deny you, you get a denial letter, right? If you get approved, you get an approval letter, right? Like, so some of these things are government-related things and government-related requirements. What you also find is that, like, publications, like in print, print we know is dying. Newspaper companies, nobody really buys newspapers, and all the newspaper companies are turning into digital, right? If your house gets foreclosed on, if you get a divorce, if you have a police incident in an area, they have to report that into the newspaper. So certain things on a legal sense, I really don't see newspapers going away anywhere. All right, so from a corporate sense, business letters aren't going anywhere for legal process and documentation purposes. All right. Business letters, they provide a permanent record. They're confidential and formal. They accompany contracts. They explain terms. They share ideas, negotiate agreements. They answer vendor questions, and they help to maintain customer relations. Looking at this slide, I really look at this more for the format. All right. If you ever had to write a business letter, what's the first thing you're going to do?
Header? Remember header?
Header?
Or
I don't know who you're addressing it to.
Find out who you're addressing it to? Anybody else?
I'm gonna do my research.
For what?
Like you said, I'm gonna figure out who's going to, what am I gonna say, like, I gotta figure out what I'm doing, what am I sending?
I'd argue I'm Googling for what a business header format looks like. If it's a business letter, what's the business letter format? All right, so looking at this, right, you got your logo up there, you got your date, your name, you know, who it's the address, who it's addressed to. What I see about this, and this is kind of those unspoken rules, it kind of depends on the person of what's acceptable or what's supposed to go into a business letter. So, you know, from a corporate sense, I would always kind of ask the expectation of certain documents and what the formatting is, just so that, you know, you got an understanding of the expectation of what's supposed to be completed or submitted. So looking at this letter, again, this is a business letter. Know that people read top to bottom, left to right. So the first thing you see in this business letter is the logo. All right, so imagine you open up this letter, you know, it's addressed to you, it has your name on it, so you know you open it. You know, we're skimmers, right? So we skim through everything, and the first thing we're looking at is top left corner. When we see the logo, right, we're always thinking, what's in it for me? We see the logo, okay, I'm familiar with that company, and we move on to the next thing. If we're not familiar, we're gonna rip that thing up and throw it away and put it in junk mail. All right? Also pay attention to the formatting and the use of bolding, right? How it allows you to skim, I mean, even the paragraphs, the structure and so forth. All right. Now let's get into the formula. So remember let's walk through the 3x3 writing process, right? First thing we're gonna do is, in the 3x3 writing process, which is analyze the audience. You're going to analyze, adapt, and anticipate. Right. Then we're going to go into the drafting process, and the first step in the drafting process is research. Second step, organize, copy-paste, outline. Third step is actually doing your draft, and then we go into the revision. How much of our time is spent in the revision process? 50%. So as we go into 6, 7, and 8, the most important part, this kind of brings back into why it's important that we're analyzing. All right, in that, can you go to 40? So when we get to analyze, can you read analyze the audience? What are we doing?
What is your purpose?
So first thing, what's my purpose? Second,
What do you want the receiver to do or believe?
what do you want the receiver to do or believe? Third,
What channel should you choose?
what channel should I use? So now, you know, if I'm communicating a positive message, I can use any channel. If I'm getting bad news, I probably want to do face-to-face. If it needs to be documented for record, I'm gonna put it on email. Next.
What are the benefits or barriers of each channel?
What are the benefits or barriers of each channel? So I'm actually breaking down and thinking about the benefits and barriers of each channel. Now we're going into anticipate. When I get to anticipate,
What is the audience profile?
what's the audience profile?
What does the receiver already know?
What's this receiver already know? So how much are they informed? Do I need to give them an explanation? Do I not need to give them an explanation?
Will the receiver's response be neutral, positive, negative?
Will the receiver's response be neutral, positive, or negative? So in that part on page 40, it's relevant to what we're about to cover in chapter 6, 7, and 8. When I understand that the receiver is going to take this message neutral, positive, or negative, it says if I'm going to be indirect or direct. All right. So for this example, this is a writing plan for a direct request. All right. When you're sending a direct request, you want to ask the most important question first or express a polite command in your opening. All right. You want to avoid long explanations preceding the main idea. So let's imagine this is an email. If I send in, and most of us actually make this mistakes when sending emails, right? You send an email and you explain the purpose of your email. Why is that a problem? If you open your email with explaining the purpose.
So like you say, I'm writing you to inform you.
I'm writing you to inform you of an issue that has happened on the campus, and within this issue, this was going on, and this is why it happened. And let me tell you, like,
It's a long reason.
it's long. It's long. And when I see some long information, I don't read it. Or I put it away and put it to the side. I'll come back later when I have capacity to read through this whole email. So understand that when you're going to approach or if somebody's going to receive something neutral or positive, you want to be direct and give them what you want first. Don't start with an explanation, start with being direct. Now remember, I'm a talk to thinker. So I find that I do this a lot when I send emails. Hey, how are you doing? I want to explain. My thought is, when I explain, you read, you understand, and then at the end, you understand, like you can do what it is I'm asking. But people are always thinking what when they read or when they listen to somebody talking, they're thinking, what? With them, what's in it for me? So if I see this long paragraph and I don't understand what's in it for me, and I gotta wait till I get all the way to the bottom to get to it, I might not get there. I'll do you one better. You send me an email. Hey, Professor Bowers, look, I had a late night last night. I know we had all these assignments that were due. I was working on them. I only got half of them done. And I gotta read through all this. Right? You're giving me an explanation. Now, why might that impact your ability to complete the assignment on time? Let's say I read this email, it's very long, I put it to the side. Or no, let me rephrase that, excuse me. Having an email with a long explanation, could that be a detriment to you in the ability for you to complete your work on time? You send me this long email, all right? What do you know about how I manage my email?
It gives you anxiety, so
It gives me anxiety, but how do I manage my email?
You get a lot of emails.
I have 2 points at a time that I check my email. I check my email once in the morning and once at night. So if you send me an email and there's this long explanation with no direct request, if I have to respond back to you and say, hey, I'm sorry, give me some more understanding of what your actual problem is, or what do you want me to do? Well, if you send me an email in the middle of the day and I respond to you at night, I'm delaying your response, or your response is delayed because now you've got to respond back to me, and I might not get back to you until the next morning. So because you didn't start your email with a direct request and more of an explanation that caused us to have more dialogue, it impacted your ability to complete an assignment in a timely manner. And I receive emails like this all the time, like with no email, with no subject line in there. You know, hey, professor, can you help me with that assignment we had yesterday? What are you talking about? I don't even respond to those emails until the next day, right? Like, because you'll eventually have to send me an email back to give me detail and understanding. And if not, you didn't care in the first place. So, again, writing plan for a direct request. In the opening, you want to ask the most important question first and express a polite command. Avoid long explanations preceding the main idea. In the body, you want to explain the request logically and courteously. You want to list questions in numbered or bulleted form, and you want to use open-ended questions. Also, note the power of open-ended questions. Group work issue. Hey, Gustavo, can you get that assignment done Monday at 4 o'clock? I told him the time and when to do it, and he just said, sure. Do I have a commitment or dedication from him? If I said, hey, Gustavo, we gotta do this work assignment, look, all of us said we're gonna get it done by Tuesday, just so we can, have it done early. Can you give me a time of when you think you can get this assignment done, or when you can at least start working on
Yeah, I can get back to you.
it? Right, but if he says, oh, I can do it Sunday on this time. Cool, well, since you can do it Sunday, do you mind if I give you a call and just follow up? Like, I can ask more questions than when I have to ask closed questions and it's just yes or no, I lose control. So when we're making direct requests, I want to use open-ended questions such as what steps are necessary, instead of yes or no questions, because I don't want the response to just be no, we can't do that, or yes, we can. I might need more of an explanation, and I don't want to have back and forth email chains. So I want to be very direct and concise. And now in my closing, I'm gonna state specifically and courteously what action is to be taken, mention an end date if necessary, and provide logical reason for the end date, and make it easier for the reader to respond. So remember the new format, right? We're using the 3x3 writing process, but we've all been taught, how do we write? What's the first thing we write? The intro, the second thing, body, third thing is conclusion. The problem with that is when we write the intro, we never think about the audience, we never research. When we get to the body, that's probably when we do research. So our intro isn't aligned with our body because we didn't really start doing our research until we started to write our body. And then our conclusion is probably a continued thought. Now, remember, the process is tell them what you're going to tell them, and then
I don't know.
tell them, said you're gonna tell them, told you're gonna tell them, right? So this is what I'm being direct. Tell them what you're gonna tell them. Tell me what I want from you, okay? I'm not giving you the explanation yet. I'm waiting until I get into the body and then I explain it. So I told you what I wanted to tell you. In this scenario, this is what I want. When I get into the explanation of what I want, that's the body. And then when I get to my conclusion, I summarize exactly what I just said in a courteous manner. So same format, just email looking at a direct plan for a direct request. So let's look at how this works. You guys mind us placing popcorn? You guys read? All right. Crystal, can you read the first paragraph for me?
Oh, yeah.
And then Lyndon, no.
First paragraph.
The
Yes. So, it says, this email is to inform you that I continue to receive disturbing reports about the misuse of email by employees. In the course of the past 3 months, I have heard of Facebooking, tweeting, and gaming. Excessive use of email, including downloads of videos, is sapping our bandwidth and slowing down the entire system.
Lyndon?
If you are foregoing, I'm here with instructing your office that an email policy should be established as needed. October 1st, a rough draft of a policy should be forthcoming. At the very minimum, it should inform each and every employee that email is for business only.
Employees must be told that we reserve the right to monitor all messages. No videos should be in the email system without a valid reason. We should not be using company internet access, Facebooking, tweeting, gaming. Okay. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to call.
So this is a positive or neutral message. What do you hear from this?
Yeah.
Somebody's got in trouble, right? If it's not, look, I feel bad for whoever's doing that. It ain't me, right? I feel like somebody's in trouble, right? And now notice this format. This is starting with an explanation. Right, so when we look at this, understand that depending on the format we use when we address people, we could be causing our own issues in how they respond to us. From here, I imagine this is a manager. The subject line says new policy. And then, so now imagine what you are as an employee. Everybody gets this, or it goes to Caitlin Roberts, right? But so she's like, oh shoot, what happened? Did I do something? Is it my team that did something? She's stressed. You're causing stressful issues for your employees by how you send emails compared to Demetra. It's the first time.
please draft a policy outlining appropriate email use to employees.
Victoria?
We need a company email policy because I have received reports of misuse, including Facebook, tweeting, gaming, and video downloads. This misuse is snapping our bandwidth and slowing down. Here are a few points that the policy should cover.
Emails for business only, internet access should be used for Facebook and tweet, or should not be used, for Facebook and tweeting, shopping and gaming. Videos may be downloaded only for valid work-related purposes. Email messages may be monitored. Please submit a draft to me by October 1st because we hope to have a final policy completed by November 5th. Call if you have any questions.
I didn't even realize the first email was to ask to make a draft.
Yeah. I was saying,
Yeah.
It was, in the view of foregoing, I'm herewith instructing your office that the email policy, to the staff is needed. Right? You didn't even realize it because, let's be real, if I got this email, I probably stopped reading at, this email is to continue to, I continue to receive disturbing reports. Now, the problem in that is if I stopped reading, then something didn't happen and I might get in trouble because I didn't read that second paragraph. But I already thought I was in trouble. That's why I didn't keep on reading, or I just kind of skimmed through it. Compared to when I start, again, now notice two things. One, new policy, and then it goes in here and it goes into an explanation. Notice the difference here. The subject says, please draft employee email policy. The first sentence, please draft the policy. Right, so tell them what you're going to tell them what you told them you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them you're going to tell them, what you told them you're going to tell them. It's told. So again, by not understanding or thinking about the audience and how the audience is going to receive this message, what detriment has it caused for you?
Your message was lost.
Or misinterpreted?
I thought the new policy was already made.
Right? Like seriously, this is, so again, the value of this is the control you have of how people respond to you. Writing a plan for response messages. So the subject line in this one, response message, and what we pointed out in that last example, the subject line of that email, it was summarized, the main points were summarized in the reply. A subject line is optional in letters. You want to use abbreviated style, omitting articles of a, and the. So the subject line should basically be abbreviated short words, right? But it should be directly related to the subject and align with that first sentence. So I'm going to abbreviate in the subject line. I'm not going to include a, and the. And then when I get to that opening, my first sentence is going to start out by directly responding to the request with a summary statement. Deliver the information that the reader wants, and then when announcing good news, always do so promptly. In the body, we're going to provide additional information and details, use lists, tables, headings, bolded words, or italics to add emphasis and improve readability. Try to promote your products and your organization to customers. In your closing, you want to add it, including remarks, summary, or offer of further assistance. And you always want to avoid cliche endings. This is one of my biggest challenges here, right? If you have any further questions, don't hesitate to call. I do that all the time at the end of my emails. Hey, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reply to this email. I think in my context, I have to do it to give certain students that are uncomfortable asking questions the permission to do so. But sometimes when you have those messages, like it's extra text, extra verbiage, it's not needed. I'm actually going to stop this part there. And let me make sure I don't have anything else I want to say. Here's one I actually want to review. So as we break off into teams, please notate this section here because, what your first team assignment is gonna really be based off of this. So writing plan for instruction messages. If you write an instruction message, your subject line is going to be summarize, it's gonna summarize the content of the message. Your subject line it shouldn't include, what letters or what words?
And
And A and the, it should be a summarized subject line that's directly related to the main purpose of the email or the request or the instructions. In the opening, I'm going to expand the subject line by stating the main idea concisely in a full sentence. So in the subject line, abbreviated main topic, in that first opening sentence, I'm getting right to the point. In the body, you're going to present the instructions in orderly steps. You'll arrange the items vertically with numbers, and then begin each step with an action verb using the imperative mood. Again, you'll have an assignment like this, and there will be questions on the quiz like this. And there were questions on the quiz like this. So understand what the imperative mood. I believe the quiz was you gave instructions for a double-sided copier. Every sentence should start with that imperative mood, right? It's open the paper. Press start. Pick up the paper, flip the paper, put down on the thing, press start, right? Like everything is an action verb that you're going to do. I'm not starting with an explanation. I'm giving you direct orders, direct commands. Because why? Too many words does what? Reduces comprehension. How many words is my sweet point? 8 to 15. So anything under 8 is 100% comprehended. 8 to 15 is 90%. I'm cool with that 90% mark. In the closing, you want to request a specific action, summarize the message, or present a closing thought. Include a deadline and reason if appropriate. This one doesn't give a good versus bad. I don't believe so. No. So when we look at this, you'll see the subject line, new procedure for submitting travel expenses, and then that first sentence, effective immediately. Please follow this procedure for submitting your travel expenses. Game changer for me, again, I'm a talk to thinker, and I like to explain. So what I was doing in my emails, I was explaining. And my emails were very, very detailed. In explaining, and I mean, even with some of the homework assignments, I told you my biggest challenge is it's too many words. And it causes a lot of people to stumble because it's too many words. But I also know it has to be so detailed because once I lose this, I don't know what you guys are reading, understanding, or thinking. So I can only level set with you by asking you questions on the instructions that you don't understand. And I know the instructions are so detailed. But it causes a stumbling block. Look at the format again. One sentence goes into the instructions, closes it, and then your header, your closing citations, and so forth. All right. Again, there will be a homework assignment that you guys will work on as a team for that. Now we get into negative messages. And like I said, I'll save persuasive messages for like next week, but I think this drives home the point of this. And again, where this is valuable is in the pre-writing part under the adapting your message section. Okay, so remember when I'm doing the pre-writing, the first thing I'm going to do is analyze the audience. So I identify my topic. I look at the understanding the audience has of that topic, and then I'm saying, how are they going to receive this message? Is it positive, negative, or neutral? And then I'm going to adapt my message to this audience. Now, again, where this is important is knowing that if I'm going to be indirect or direct. All right. So some goals in communicating negative news, you want to explain clearly and completely. You want to project a professional image. You want to convey empathy and sensitivity. You want to be fair and impartial, and you want to maintain friendly relations. The key thing we're going to see by how we communicate bad or negative news is if you do it the proper way, you can maintain friendly relations. I argue if you are that person that says, I'm gonna tell you how it is, you take it how it is, and if you like it or you hate it, that's your call. You're not working effectively or efficiently, and then people don't perceive you well. Because you don't care that they're thinking with them, what's in it for me? Again, when we're giving this negative, bad news, we want to maintain friendly relations. So direct strategy versus indirect strategy. In the direct strategy, you want to use the direct strategy when the bad news is not damaging, when the receiver may overlook the bad news, or when the organization or receiver prefers directness, or when firmness is necessary. You want to use the indirect method when the bad news is personally upsetting, when the bad news will provoke a hostile reaction, or when the bad news threatens the customer relationship, or when the bad news is unexpected. All right, so Lyndon, you didn't participate in the work, you're off the assignment, I'm sorry, you get a 0. Direct. How do you feel about that?
And I didn't do my work, bro. I can't get mad or upset.
If that's the case, but because I want to direct, you're most likely your response is to defend, right? Like, it might be like, come on, I had to work, I was doing this, are you really not gonna include me in the group? Like, really, like, if you're direct with somebody with some information like that, there's a defense that comes in. Compared to, hey, Linda, man, listen, I really appreciate you. I appreciate all the work you put in and dedicated to this group, and you're extremely valued to everything that we do. We agreed that we would complete the work 2 days before, and then everyone that didn't complete the work 2 days before would be removed from the group. So unfortunately, I'm gonna have to remove from this paper. I understand you have a lot of things going on, but going forward, I want to make sure that I'm there to support you. And if you do, have some trouble getting to that 2-day mark, give me a call, shoot me a text so we can go ahead and, come to a solution. But like in that, the way that I presented it, because I explained it in a way, in that format, his response at that point, what can you say? But you're right, you got it. Like, I understand. Because of how I communicated it to him. All right. So in the direct strategy, when giving bad news, you're going to give bad news first because it's correct, it's not damaging. You can just give this bad news. You'll give the reasons and then you'll close. All right. So if the bad news isn't damaging, hey, the men's bathroom on the 3rd floor doesn't work. All right. There was an issue going on with the plumbing, but it's only impacting this area. You can use the bathroom downstairs, right? Like, it's not damaging. I can be right to the point. If I was indirect, it would be, hey, there were plumbing issues that were going on that impacted all the bathrooms. And with this impact, it causes us not to be able to use the bathroom on the 3rd floor. And when I give you this explanation for the news that's not damaging, what are you thinking? Realistically. Like, you don't care, right? Like, cool. Like, I didn't need to know that all this stuff was going on. I just need to know I can't use the bathroom, right? When it's the indirect strategy, you're going to start with the buffer. You're going to go into the reasons. You're going to give the bad news, and then you're going to go to a close. So now this is very strategic in how it's done. You start with your buffer. Your buffer is going to be a neutral opening that's a meaningful statement, right? So again, why it's important to research your audience first is I can't say, hey, Lyndon, I'd like to stay outside. right? But look, you're not on this paper because of, right? Like, I gotta say something that actually identifies, right? That's meaningful. The reasons, you want to explain the causes of bad news before disclosing it. So understand in that example that I did, right? When I explained it, this was why you can't rebuttal with defensive nature. Because the explanation was given before I give the bad news, right? So I got the buffer, I appreciate you, I give the explanation, and then I give the bad news. However, two caveats to giving bad news. You reveal the bad news without emphasizing it, and you always want to provide an alternative, or you reveal the bad news without emphasizing it, and you use the passive voice. Okay?
So I work for an airline also, and I work customer service. And this is everything when it comes to talking about your flight is canceled. Yeah.
Like the way we talk to people controls how they respond to us. Now, in the closing, you want to end with a personalized, forward-looking, pleasant statement, and you want to avoid referring to the bad news. So when I say there's this Jedi mind trick to the communication, like, you don't even, like, let's go into, let me see. Now a buffer, just so you guys know, and I'm gonna high level this, is it's gonna reduce, it's a device to reduce shock or pain. It's a neutral and meaningful statement that makes the reader continue reading. And it's a concise, relevant opening that provides a natural transition to the explanation that follows. Buffers could be best news, it could be compliments, appreciation, agreement, facts, understanding. Understand that when you do give a buffer, it just has to be meaningful and relevant. Again, really quick, apologizing. I'm really not a fan of apologizing. I find people don't apologize because they really sincerely apologize. They apologize because you want to hear it. All right, so be cautious of when you give apologies. Like, apology is a mission of blameworthiness and regret for an undesirable event. Apologies to customers are important, right? Especially if the company made a mistake. I find this is a challenge in corporate America today because there's one side where it's like, you know, I remember the customer was never wrong. They don't listen to that no more. The customer is definitely wrong, right? And now as a manager, you got to protect your people and then also know when to break up with the wrong people. You know, in sales, they say 80% of your book or 20% of your book of business comes from your, or 80% of your book of business comes from your 20% of your clients. And then 80% of the 80% of the other 80% is BS clients that you can get rid of and break up with. So when you're in sales, how do you find the strong 20% and get rid of the 80% so you can grow that 20%? Apologies cost nothing, but they go a long way in soothing hard feelings. Sincere apologies work and may even affect the bottom line. All right. But again, with apologies, I'm kind of, you know, if you don't mean it, there's no reason to waste your words, right? Or be very intentional of how you apologize, but we're always going to think what's in it for me, for the audience, the person that we're communicating with. When we're talking about getting into emails, I'm not going to send you an apology email. That's a waste of time. Gustavo mentioned it. I get anxiety from emails, and it might be the most sweetest intention, right? That you're apologizing to me, but you could have saved that and just talked to me in person or gave me a phone call, all right?
Unless something's tied to it.
Unless, yeah, right. But for most cases, you could have just, you know, that's an extra email that I didn't need to read. All right, so presenting the bad news, you want to explain the reasons leading up to the denial. You want to cite reader benefits. You want to explain the rationale behind the company's policy. You want to choose positive words to keep the reader in a receptive mood. And you want to show fairness and a serious intent. So, you know, again, we kind of go back from certain corporate situations, but it also applies in personal as well. Some techniques for cushioning the bad news. You can position the bad news strategically. You can use the passive voice. You can highlight the positive. If relevant, you can imply the refusal, or you can suggest a compromise or an alternative. That implied refusal always gets people in a headlock for some reason. right? So on the quiz, like if you started off the question with, hey, unfortunately, we can't contribute money to your fundraiser this year, that's not implied. Implied would be, our budget is earmarked or is fully, expensed this year. We'll look at contributing next year to the fundraiser. Like, and I mean, even that, we'll look at next year for the fundraiser, takes away from the implied. But understand that if you start that sentence off with, hey, unfortunately, we can't do it because it's not an implied refusal. Bless you. Let me get to the example because I'm over time. So in this example, we're talking about a writing plan for refusing typical customer requests or claims. So in this, you want to start with a neutral statement such as a compliment, appreciation, quick review of the facts, or an apology. You want to include a key idea that acts as a transition to the reasons. You want to present valid reasons for the refusal. You want to avoid words that create a negative tone. When you give the bad news, again, de-emphasize the bad news by using the passive voice. You want to accentuate the positive or imply the refusal. This is very important. De-emphasize the bad news. You want to suggest a compromise or alternative or substitute when appropriate or possible. And then in the closing, you want to renew good feelings with a positive statement. You want to avoid referring to the bad news. You want to include resell or sales promotions if possible, and then always look forward to future business, right? Remember, when giving bad news, we want to maintain friendly relations. So here's an ineffective reply. Gustavo, can you go ahead and read that first one for me? And then Altisha, you're up next, please.
We regret to inform you that we cannot allow you to convert the lease payments you have been making on your Canon X1000 color copier toward its purchase. Much as we would love, we understand that you have been making regular payments for this payment 16 months.
Altisha?
Our established company policy prohibits conversion of leasing monies. Perhaps you have noticed that we offer extremely low leasing and purchase prices. Obviously, these low prices would never be possible if we agreed to many proposals such as yours.
Demetra? Just close it out.
Because we're striving to stay in business, we cannot agree to your request asking us to convert all 16 months of rental payments toward the purchase of our popular new equipment. It is our understanding, Mr. Diaz, that you have had the Canon X1000 color copier for 16 months. And you can claim that it has been reliable and versatile. We would like to tell you about another Canon Model 1 that is perhaps closer to your limited budget. Sincerely.
You're the customer. You received this refusal message. When did you stop reading?
When they got passive aggressive,
We
saying,
regret to inform you.
Triggered. Right? So we regret to inform you. The moment I saw that, when did you stop reading?
Oh, you need to know.
Right there, we regret to inform you. So remember, we want to maintain friendly relationships, right? Well, when I start this refusal law, we regret to inform you, well, I regret to try to throw this thing in the trash, right? Like, I'm not reading any further. So look at the difference here. When you actually format with buffer, reasons, bad news, de-emphasize using the passive voice, and then a pleasant close. So, dear Mr. Diaz, we're happy to learn that you have been enjoying the use of the Canon X1000 color copier you've been leasing for the past 16 months. night and day. We regret to inform you, compared to starting off with a buffer that says, we're happy to learn that you've been enjoying, right? This, I continue reading. I sent a request, and this request, we know they're asking to do some type of lease conversion into a purchase. That first sentence, and look how it's even formatted. Look at this text forming. You read it like you don't know where you want to start at compared to this. Like, I still see paragraphs, but I can point to this first sentence right here and read that very quickly, and it provides a good feeling for me. Hey, we're happy to learn, all right? So we're happy to learn that you have been enjoying the use of the Canon X1000 color copier you've been leasing for the past 16 months. Like many of our other customers, Mr. Diaz, you have discovered the Canon copier supplied remarkable versatility and reliability. One of the reasons we're able to offer these outstanding copiers at such low leasing rates and equally low purchase prices is that we maintain a slim profit margin. If our program included a provision for applying lease payments towards purchase prices, our overall prices would have to be higher. Although lease payments cannot be credited toward purchase price, we can offer you other Canon models that are within your price range. The Canon 600 delivers the same reliability with nearly as many features as the top-of-the-line Canon X1000. Please let us demonstrate the Canon 600 to your staff in your office, Mr. Diaz. Our representative, Marcia Murphy, will call you during the week of April 15th to arrange an appointment. Let's see if this works. Somehow this works.
Bottom right,
Raise your hand up, okay.
in the middle of the screen.
Yeah. I gotta actually use my. So. All of that just to do this.
I'll turn. I'll turn.
That's the bad news.
With a plan.
Buffer, reasons, bad news de-emphasized, alternative. What do you,
They figured it out for me.
but what does it sound like though?
They already have a solution to the problem.
Very positive.
They have a
It's
date.
positive.
Yeah.
This does not sound like bad news when it's formatted in that way. So again, when we think what's in it for me, and we analyze and adapt our message to the audience, depending on how we communicate our message is how they receive it. I control if the audience receives the message and responds back to me in a positive manner, or if they respond back to me in a negative manner. And it's literally all how I phrase and structure my words. I'm over my time, so I'm gonna stop right there. We can get back into it a little bit next week, if possible. Just given with the material that we're reviewing. Let me go ahead and pull up our assignments for next week. Again, with the teams, can you guys, my three, can you guys sit together so I know who's where? So there's three that were already in team, group together. That was Jackie, Lyndon, and you said somebody else, right?
It was four of us, wasn't it? Because Gretchen's not here on BC, me, Lyndon, and then,
Crystal.
Crystal. was-
Okay, so
like,
you three will be a team.
Mhm.
All right, and then the other team was, you said it was, who, you worked with who else?
I've also worked with Demetria, but am I with them?
No, who have you, like typically with the ADP program, you get assigned in teams. The ADP program hasn't been having the same enrollment, so I've noticed that they've basically been combining classes to make sure that you guys can continue going on without pausing. All right, so that's basically happening now.